This video is brought to you by the guitar Skyhook.
Hi there everyone and welcome to Artists in the Attic. My name is Morten K. Artists in the Attic is a slow TV talk show where I'll be having different artists visiting me in my tiny attic studio to talk about their career. My guest today is the multi-instrumentalist Guy Moscoso. Guy's main instruments are saxophone and bass, but he also plays guitar, piano, ukulele, trumpet, upright bass, all types of woodwinds, and even bagpipe. Guy is born and raised in America, but he has also been living in Japan, and for almost half of his life he has been playing music and theatre in Denmark. Welcome, Guy Moscoso. So good to have you here.
Glad to be here.
And I'm looking forward to hear a few stories about your musical career. First, I'd like to ask you a bit about how did you get into music? And did you know that you wanted to be a musician all life?
Well, for a long time I thought I'd be a music teacher. My dad's music teacher in a junior high school. I was always playing different instruments and helping other people with instruments, where I could always see what their problems were, and I could always think, okay, this suggestion would help them to fix whatever problem they're doing. So I knew that I was going to be in music teaching. I thought I was going to have the same job as my dad, teaching in a high school or junior high school and playing gigs on the weekends or wherever possible. But I never did do the teaching. I got a teaching degree from college, but I wound up playing with a band and traveling, and I wound up here in Denmark.
But you're not from Denmark. Where are you from?
Born in New York, but when I was like 11 or 12, we moved to Florida, and that's where I grew up, junior high school and high school. Then I went to college in Texas, and I was in Texas for a little while, where I played with some musicians. Then I wound up traveling because of a band in Texas.
You're what you could call a multi-instrumentalist?
Yeah.
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 But you started out with the saxophone?
Yeah, when I was about 10. Yeah, I was 10. My dad, he gave me his alto sax. It was his alto sax. He bought it when he was at Juilliard School of Music. They had a short-lived saxophone program there, and he was one of the sax majors at that time. Gave it to me, showed me how to put the reed on, showed me how to put the mouthpiece on, and showed me where the fingers were, and then he just sent me off to school and in this school there was it's the regular elementary school, and they had a program where you'd get a half an hour lesson with a teacher. I got alto sax lessons there once a week, and then they created a band that practiced after school, and I started playing in that band on saxophone. And that was my first instrument, alto sax. Then somewhere along the line, my dad got the clever idea of letting me try oboe. And so in that band, I started playing alto sax. I switched over to oboe a little bit. So I still took lessons on the saxophone in the half an hour lessons, then went in that band and played some oboe. Then it gradually developed where in the junior high school, actually we moved from New York to Florida around that time. And when I got to Florida, I started picking up the different instruments that are sitting around the house: clarinet, flute, trumpet, there's drums and there's keyboards and guitar and bass. But the guitar and bass, they happened a little bit later, but I was blowing into the different instruments, and we have the music books on the fingering for trumpet, and so I would learn the fingering, and I'd be just as good as the other kids who were just picking up the instruments. So at the beginner level, I was as good as the other kids on the different instruments. So I wound up touching a lot of different instruments because of that.
But at that time, and your daddy was actually a music teacher, but he didn't teach you a thing, did he?
Like I said, he gave me these sax, and he showed me how to put the reed on and the mouthpiece and put the fingers on it, because he knew he couldn't teach. Everyone has problems teaching their own kids. So he just sent me to school. But I think, in a sense, everyone who is a musician and has kids that are doing music, there's maybe not direct music lessons, but there's comments that you learn from, indirect comments and stuff that you realize, oh, don't do that. oh, do this.
Yeah.
And so you're getting constant music lessons indirectly.
Yeah. So are there any other musicians in your family?
Well, my mom didn't play anything, my sister didn't play anything, but my brother was a trombone player, is a trombone player.
Yeah.
And he got a teaching job just like my dad. He's a little older than me, a year and a half older than me, so he got into college before me. I was playing gigs in high school. I started playing gigs, well, as a substitute. I could read music, I could play different instruments. And often I'd come in, for example, in a big band or something, playing, or little pop bands we had together where I was in the horn section. And often the bass player didn't show up. And so I started playing around with the bass, and I started just taking over for the bass player. First I'd sit in that first day, whether I read it or played it by ear or whatever. And then they said, oh, that's better than the other guy, or the other guy didn't show up anymore or something. So I wound up being the bass player. That happened a lot of times.
And that's your second instrument now, isn't it?
Yeah. I started, just like all the other instruments in the house, I started picking them up and trying to see what I could do. And we have some Music -1 records that I play a little bit with.
You actually went to Disneyland.
When I was in college, North Texas State University in Texas, Denton, Texas, just north of Dallas and Fort Worth. It's a big music school, and Florida, Disney World in Florida and Disneyland in California, they have a band system there where they go out to different colleges, do auditions, and they create a big band from different players around. So I played in the 1983 All-American College Marching Band.
Was that because you got an entertainment thing as well?
When I went to the audition, I was trying to be enthusiastic, and because I knew that that's what they wanted. What else would they want?
Yeah.
And I knew friends that had been in it the previous years. But my dad, being a musician, he knows a lot of the rules of, like he would teach the kids that if you ever play a wrong note, don't ever respond to it. Don't ever act like you recognize it. And one of the first concerts we played in his band was in that junior high school band was, he had taught that rule, and people who made mistakes, they stood still, and the guy next to him looked at him, and then when they went down to their parents, they're like, oh, you made a mistake. Well, the kid who looked got the blame. So there's a lot of small things like that. If there's a soloist, look at the soloist. If pay attention and shift direction, because there's not multiple cameras to shine on different people. So it's when the musicians themselves are paying attention and looking like you're having a good time. Whether you're having a good time or not, that's not
the point.
Don't telegraph.
No.
You're not having a good time. Just don't play anymore with that band after that gig.
Okay, we'll have a short break to tell you about our sponsor, the guitar skyhook.
A skyhook is a new and discreet way to hang your guitar on a wall. Use a strap button on the back of the guitar. If you don't have one on your guitar yet, the skyhook comes with one for you to mount. Find more information on the website skyhook.dk.
And back to Guy Moscoso. When did you go to Japan then?
As soon as I finished college, I stayed in the area near the college, and I got into a country rock band. And the band was traveling for American Airlines, so they were traveling to different countries. And I got a chance to first we came to Europe for a short tour. I was concentrating on trying to make the gig work, so I was trying to learn the parts, and they hired me as a bass player who could play another instrument. That was the whole...
But did you play on the airplane, or did you... How did it work?
We played at the destinations they were starting up. So when they were starting to go to Venezuela for the first time, they would have a party in Venezuela, and they would invite the mayor and entertain people in the travel industry to say, now we're coming to this area. Welcome us, we're welcoming you. So I played in this band. We played like 1 45-minute set, a dance set kind of a thing. And then one of the gigs was in Florida. Not Florida, Japan. And right around that time, this band was falling down in that it didn't have as many gigs with them, and it didn't have as many gigs doing what it was doing in this country rock field. And I heard about teaching English in Japan, and I had a little fire burning underneath me to try to live abroad. And my first plan was to try to come to Europe, but Europe has no use for Americans. You can get a tourist visa, and you can be there for as long as a tourist, but you can't live a period of time. So I took this chance to go teach in Japan for a year. The first year I was there. I was there 4 years in all.
Yeah, but no music on the way then? Was it only teaching English or what?
I brought my bass and my sax, and I bought a keyboard in Japan, a workstation kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I had my sax and my bass, which I didn't play as much. I didn't have a bass amp, so it was really not as fun to play bass. So almost for a year, I really wasn't playing that much, which is sort of strange because when I came back after a year, the first week I was back, I got a call to play with Michael W. Smith to come to an audition. Actually, I played my tenor sax a little bit. I had it there. I wasn't really training it up, keeping it at a high level. But when he called, he wanted me to play alto sax, which I hadn't played in a year, and soprano sax, which I hadn't played in a year. Yeah. So I quickly went to the audition. He flew me out to Nashville. I did the audition, and he said, "Sounds good." Then I got the gig, and then I went home and practiced to make sure I had the stamina and I could play the high notes like I needed to. I went back to Japan for 3 more years and taught English, same apartment, a couple different schools in that area, and then met a Danish girl my second year I was there. This second time I was in Japan. So for 2 years we were in Japan together. We had to decide where we would go. We wound up deciding coming back to Denmark.
Being from Denmark, it's always interesting to hear. What was it like coming to Denmark?
Well, some people often said things like, "How's the language? How's the food?" Well, first I had been in Japan for 4 years, and food is a little strange. So, the fish, sill, sardines, that was easy enough to figure out. And so the food was not a problem. The language was. I was there 4 years in Japan, and I calculated that in about 4 months of being in Denmark, I learned as much Danish as I learned Japanese of the 4 years I was in Japan. So it was just moving in the right direction quite easily.
Yeah.
And Danes, they can all speak English if you wanted to shift over to English.
Yeah.
But everyone was very nice to me. They forced me to speak Danish. They were all good at speaking English, but they knew that I had to learn Danish. So they just forced me to say the 4 sentences I could say in so many different combinations. It should have been a 3-minute conversation in Danish, and they forced me to speak for 15 minutes, and I was like, the last 10 minutes were like a pain, but it forced my level up.
Yeah, you had a good level in Danish,
Thank
I
you.
must say. So, but then you started actually doing what you were set up to do. You started teaching people to play music. Is that right?
Yeah, as soon as I came, I was trying to figure out if I was going to teach any English or anything. I actually had one student that I taught a little bit to, but really Danes don't need English lessons. They're good at English. So I could see right away that was not going to be the deal. And I started playing with some musicians locally, and one of the guys, he worked at the music school, and he said, "There's an opening for a sax player and a bass player. You could do both of those things to teach bass and sax and group lessons and stuff." So I interviewed for that, got the position, and started teaching. Like in less than 6 months after being here, I was teaching kids in the school in Danish.
Very impressive.
So I used a lot of the techniques of teaching that I had from Japan, of not having so much language ability, but how to get someone to repeat. Do this one more time, repeat this, and also students-centered, that you get the student to play more. It's actually easier to say, "Play that again," than it is to say, "Okay, this, you repeat, when you're doing this, think this, and think this, place the back in your mouth and the fingers." The more you talk, the less they play. So I used that disadvantage as a kind of an advantage, that they would play more.
Then you started gigging, and after 3 years in Denmark, you actually had a prize here on Fyn, where you were the Jazz Musician of the Year. How was that?
It was. I had actually heard about this prize when I was in Japan. My Danish wife said that Yeah, there's some people who won this prize previous years. There was a singer, and there was a saxophone player. And then when I got to Denmark, I started meeting and playing with these people. And Vinnie Jule.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play a Christmas concert here with jazz stuff. She was one of the winners, and there's a saxophone player named Morten K. And so I met him very soon after coming, and I play with him, tip to a big band, and I'm substitute for him, and he substitutes for me, and so I got into that world, and after getting here and playing with there's a group called Tip to a Big Band. We have our 25th anniversary this year. I jumped in with them, and because I was a part of that, and I was playing some gigs and various things in the jazz thing, they gave the prize to me that year. So I was the Årets Fynske Jazzmusiker.
Yeah, and pretty impressive for being that short, but being a skilled musician is not that big of a surprise though.
Although Americans luck out a little bit when they show up and they're a musician, because that's where it came from, so they trust that you can do it.
Oh yeah.
But then there's a thing that Danes, I heard they said an expression called United Bluff. Yeah. Which they explained to me, meaning that I'm from America, but then it was a bluff. You really couldn't do it. Yeah. And so I would have to have to pay out. It would have to be the right thing.
But you did.
I did.
Yeah. And then you went in, amongst other things, to do some theatre work.
One of the first things I did when I got into, I was at the music school teaching normally, doing some gigs here and there. Then I got a chance to do a gig called Crazier for You. It was a theatre thing in Aarhus. And I substituted half time up there. So that was my first theatre gig, working in the pit as a normal pit musician. And then I started doing a couple more theatre things in that vein, substituting. And a couple of them, I was the main player. And then a local theatre called Odense International Music Theatre, Odense International Musiktheater. Yeah. The shows are done mostly in song throughout the whole thing,
and in English.
Yeah, and always in English. Almost always in English. And they decided, instead of trying to get actors who could maybe play an instrument to some degree and try to raise the musical level by adding their little bit of music, they decided, why don't we go after a musician who can actually play and maybe be on stage singing, acting, or filling out the stage. And they knew me, and they asked if I wanted to do it, and I came and I wanted to do it, and I did it.
Yeah, and I saw you a few times. It was fantastic because you were playing different instruments, and that gave something to the story, actually, that you were able to go on stage and do different stuff.
Very visual, the nature of everything. Of course, if you needed a bass player, I'd play bass, but sometimes they actually wrote at least one show where there's two saxophone players backing up two actors who were supposed to be playing saxophone, but they actually had a saxophone in their hand, but then the musician behind them was actually the sound. Yeah. So it was an interesting concept, and that was it was built on the Homer's
Odyssey.
Yeah. Where he had to come back from the wars, but he was coming back because his girlfriend was being there was a guy who played sax who actually couldn't play sax. Yeah. And she said, if you learn how to play the sax, then I'll fall in love with you. But he was coming back from the war, so it had this very saxophone-based...
Was it Song of the Sirens?
Yes. Yeah. And that was one of the first shows we did. I did with them. And that was a great show. Very soprano sax, tenor sax, bass, clarinet, and sometimes we had to cook down the band down to a keyboard, another keyboard, me on bass or whatever, and another guy on guitar. So about four of us that were based to having instruments in our hands most of the time. Yeah. And at one point we had a Finnish girl who was sort of like a child character, and she played a contrabass or acoustic bass. And I didn't play acoustic bass, but they asked, when she comes forward and does this little child thing, we don't want her playing bass. Could you take her bass over? They knew I played electric bass. So boom, boom, boom. I played a little bit on it, and then they got the bright idea that when the next show came and she wasn't in that show, that I could maybe play an acoustic bass. They bought an acoustic bass for like a stage prop. It was supposed to be on stage to like very naked stage, and so this bass laying there was going to be something. It's supposed to be like a stand-in for a coffin. We would carry it in and lay it down as this guy was dying or something. And so then, how much could you play this? So every song that I could play it that it made sense visually, I would pick it up and play it. And then I wound up playing acoustic bass
as well
as an instrument.
Yeah.
As opposed to just a little toy for a moment.
Yeah. Then you got into, I think you were in the TV show spin-off called Op på Tangenterne.
Actually, my connection to that show was Jens Coyle. He was playing this TV show in the two pianos, and they took that concept of people guessing the hangman style of guessing the next word of the titles of the songs, and then they would sing the songs when they guessed the titles. And they did a tour where they took the main guy, the host.
Oh yeah.
I mean Jens.
Yeah.
He went out and would do shows where he played guitar, sang, and they sort of mixed it in with this, like the TV show.
Oh.
And so at one point I substituted on bass, and I came and took over for the bass player, substituted. And then I mentioned to them, I also play saxophone.
Yeah.
And then Jens Coyle, there's a summer theater show called Waterfällen.
The Rat Trap.
The Rat Trap. And they were trying to expand their duo music group to a trio who could play a bass player who could play another instrument. And I said I could play bass, and he remembered that, and he called me and he said, could you play acoustic bass? I didn't play acoustic bass on that gig, but I had been practicing acoustic bass. Yeah. And could you play another instrument like saxophone or clarinet? And I said, yeah, because will it be good? And I said, I'm a sax player first. So that was going to be no problem.
Yeah.
And so since 2007, I've been doing that summer show.
Yeah.
We play all
every
summer.
Yeah. So you're actually a professional musician now. You can say, Do you teach still?
Well, once I got that gig at that Waterfällen, that summer gig, that helped to make it not necessary to have to fill the schedule with teaching lessons and stuff. So I backed out of teaching about 12 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. Yeah. And I'm just playing music.
Yeah. But then you go out sometimes, I've seen, as an entertainer as well.
Yeah, do what I do as much as I can.
Yeah.
Very often I'm a little bit of a sideman and add the entertainment level to whatever's happening there.
Yeah. What are you up to right now?
Well, we just finished our summer gig, so that took up a lot of the summer.
Yeah.
There's the Blues Brothers Souvenir Show, which I'm a member of. There's also the Tiptoe Big Band, which has been going on since 25 years. We have our 25th year anniversary this year. I play children's theater shows with a woman named Tina Scow. And we do a Noah's Ark show where I'm Noah.
Yeah, of course.
We do Moses, and I'm Moses. We play in churches, and we go out, play all different instruments, and most of it is musical explanation of the stories.
Yeah.
We also do Adam and Eve, where she's Adam and I'm Eve. It's for kids, so she thought it was going to be a smart idea, and it actually works very well. When I change clothes, first I'm God, and then I change clothes, and I come out with a little flute with a tutu and in pink, and they laugh at that. Which that's one of the ideas. Yes. At the same time, we're playing some good music. But you mix it up with the visuals and the different sea of instruments we have sitting out there. That's part of the thing.
Did you meet any special persons? Did you do any special gigs that we could hear about? I heard something about a band called The Temptations.
Yes. When I was 17, still in high school, I got a chance to play baritone sax with The Temptations. So...
My girl. Just saying, my girl.
And the baritone sax, dum,
Yeah.
dum, 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 Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Oh yeah, Rolling Stone.
You know, and the baritone sax is crucial to a lot of that music.
Yeah.
And so that was great to do that.
Yeah.
At 17, you're not old enough in Florida to be in a club. But we didn't tell anyone that.
No. So it was pretty early starting off with such a gig.
Yeah, so I played a whole week with them and New Year's Eve, and so that was something I could brag about for a long time.
So cool to play with the Temptations. That was all for the talk about Guy's career. If you want to hear more about Guy, have a look on the next video, Artists in the Attic, Nerd Alert. Here we'll go into the more musically nerdy stuff. Guy will tell us about the New York system, a way for musicians to communicate about what key to play the next song in. We'll have a look on one of Guy's favorite instruments, a G&L bass, and we'll talk about the song Take 5 that goes in 5. And Guy will play the song on bass and saxophone at the same time. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you Skyhook for the support. Please like the video if you do, and please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell button not to miss more artist talks from me.